31-year-old man who admitted to killing victims in his apartment, then dismembering their bodies, may have murdered up to 17 people.
A serial killer is on the loose in the Daytona area.
Investigators are on the trail of a possible serial killer.
A stunning claim from an accused killer awaiting trial in Pennsylvania.
And authorities believe they could very well have a serial killer in custody.
And they say it may be the work of a serial killer.
An accused serial killer.
Welcome back to another exciting installment of 5 Minutes of Murder, the segment where I, Daddy Longlegs, take the time out of my busy prison rules lawn darts career to bring you a deeper look into one of society's real-life monsters, that of the serial killer. On tonight's show, we're going to take a special magnifying glass look at one of California's own monsters, William Lester Suff, better known as Bill Suff, a.k.a. the Riverside Prostitute Killer, a.k.a. the Lake Elsinore Killer, who is known for at least 12 murders, but suspected to be around 20 to 25 murders, combining raping, stabbing, strangulation, and of course, mutilation. So like that dab, kids, throw on a bag of popcorn and sit back, because this one, well, she's going to be a doozy. William Suff was born on August 20th, 1950 in California. His father abandoned his family, so he's raised by his mother, a cold, non-loving, dominant woman who was very abusive towards William, even when he was just a child. Still regardless, William, like so many other boys, seeked the approval of his mother, who would deny him at every turn. As a boy growing up, William was, well, average. Nothing about him really stood out, not at home or school, just plain old average.
He was trying to get attention from his different classmates. You know, he was like a non-entity.
Most of his friends and acquaintances didn't think of him as certainly the big man on campus.
He was desperate for approval and recognition, and he wasn't receiving it from anybody. And it just infuriated him. It created this powerful rage in him to prove his worth, his value, and his power, basically.
As he grew older, he did anything to get out of the home, so he enlisted in the Air Force and was relocated for his training in Texas. Upon one of his trips back home to his former high school, he happened upon a football game at the high school where William would meet his then future wife, Terrell.
I was about 15, and it was at a football game in California. I saw him, and he seemed like a pretty nice guy. He was good looking, and he had a nice smile. He was kind of shy. I gave him my phone number. I said, give me a call. And I really did not expect to hear from him again.
Within a short period of time while they were still dating, as William was still in Texas, Terrell called him to inform him that she had been raped and was now pregnant. Without batting an eye, William convinced Terrell on the phone to marry him and that he would raise a child as his own. Then in 1974, Terrell gave birth to a lovely baby girl that 2 months later, William would beat to death.
The injuries that the doctors were able to diagnose on Deschanel were extensive, and it indicated chronic physical abuse. Her liver had actually been ruptured by a fist blow to her stomach.
Both of them were convicted of this murder, but the Texas Court of Appeals would later reverse Terrell's conviction while still upholding Suff's conviction, sentencing him to 70 years in jail, of which he only served 10 years before being released on parole in 1984. Now fast forward things to 1986 to where we find an older William appearing to be a very well-adjusted member of society. Now he was living in Riverside City, California, working at the same service center for over 5 years, babysitting for his neighbors, and even volunteering in his city's carpool. No one knew the past that he once had, but beneath the surface, there was a monster lurking. Then on December 21st, 1990, the first of many bodies to come of William's victims were found. That of 27-year-old Susan Melissa Sternfield.
The middle section of this trash bin holder was open. And the body was right here.
But it wasn't just what they found that was so disturbing. What was even more disturbing was how they found it.
She was what we call posed. She wasn't just laid out, she wasn't just dumped there. Her feet, her hands, her legs were positioned by the perpetrator.
The body was posed for us, legs open, basically saying, here's your trash, it's right here. Brings back those horrible memories.
Only thing was, Susan was not the first that William killed. In fact, other bodies were going to start turning up very, very soon, as in the case of 33-year-old Cheryl Coker, who was killed in the same brutal manner and posed as well.
There was a worker at another industrial complex who was cleaning, and he went to the dumpster and found a body lying inside.
She was basically laid there. Her legs were spread apart.
Rarely does the killer position the body or take the clothes off the body. It was a very purposeful, specific killing.
When a killer poses victims, it's a kind of in-your-face statement to whoever finds them. So it adds one more layer to their feeling of power.
These killings were extremely brutal and violent. Not your everyday murder, so to speak.
On Cheryl, there was a severed breast.
We found it up the hill where he would have thrown it. It was probably at least around 50 to 70 feet from the body, so it was a purposeful heave.
That he obviously did not like prostitutes or did not like ladies of this nature because of the violence that had taken place with her.
Look, we all know people get murdered, but the level of mutilation that William bestowed upon his victims was almost legendary. It was clear that there was a pattern here, and law enforcement was right on top of it.
I went back and spoke with my superiors and told them that we've got a pattern going here. So where this is going to take us, we'll find out.
We were beginning to sense that we had a serial killer in our midst.
At that time, unknown to law enforcement, William had been killing for quite some time before they found the very first body. Hardly the first victim. Then on February 8th, 1990, another Williams victim would become discovered. That of 35-year-old Carol Lynn Miller.
She had a number of centered stab wounds to her chest. They weren't random, not slashing, just very deliberate.
But like Williams' other murders, there was something even more disturbing to these details. This killing, as opposed to the others, got even darker and even more violent.
And there was a partially eaten grapefruit by the body.
If he felt he could eat a grapefruit while standing there and looking at the body, looking at and admiring his work. And that would tell one that he is definitely not worried about the police catching him.
When an individual goes above and beyond what is necessary to kill the person, it tells you just how gratifying it is for him to expose himself to the risk of apprehension in order to carry out what he's doing.
Now, it was at this point that more and more victims kept popping up. Each one was more disturbingly augmented than the one before it.
One victim was found with a light bulb that had been inserted up her vaginal area. We had items stuffed down people's throats and mouths after they were dead.
The cause of death in these cases were strangulation. The pressure was so much, it would break the bone here. So it was quite violent.
Strangulation for murder is very personal, puts the person very close to the victim and feeling the life force leaving. So that is often about domination and a feeling of power.
Yes, he said it, a light bulb up the vagina. The killings would go on, and all of them were tied together clearly by one thing: the level of sheer brutality and disturbing mannerisms in each and every case. Now, while there were no witnesses at this time, like other serial killers, Williams started leaving evidence behind, that of carpet fibers and tire marks.
And so they realized the perpetrator was going back and forth between the county sheriff's department area and the city in the same vehicles, and that they needed to combine resources to finding this person and stopping him.
Law enforcement began to form a joint task force out of the Riverside area. They used a county warehouse, and they called upon it to help with the logistics of running this task force. That, by a strange twist of fate, was also the employment of the then 40-year-old William Lester Suff, the killer himself.
He would provide us with all the equipment, all the desks, all the chairs that we needed to create the task force site.
This would no doubt give William a leg up on the task force, as he had total access of their investigation, keeping him one step ahead all the time.
He had conversations with our investigators about the homicide victims. Matter of fact, a homicide victim was found one morning when two of the investigators were with Bill, and their pager went off, and Bill made the comment to them, "Oh, did you find another body?"
But then the authorities caught a break. In August of 1991, the hacked-up body of 23-year-old prostitute Kelly Marie Hammond was found, and it was still warm. But at this time, William had slept up big time. See, Kelly's best friend, who is now in police custody, and witnessed the whole entire thing, witnessed her being picked up by a man in a silver van.
She told me that he was a white male, probably in his late 40s, who wore glasses. So now we have a color of vehicle, we have a description of an individual. Now we need to find the individual, we need to find the van, and we can tie it all up.
With this information, detectives were now entrenched with local prostitutes, stalking out the areas which the victims had been taken from.
I would talk to the girls, build up that rapport with the women that were out there working, so that they would trust me, that they would call me if something happened, that they knew that it wasn't just about catching a murder, it was about helping them.
But none of this would keep William from killing again. Then on December 23rd, 1991, the mutilated body of 39-year-old prostitute Eleanor Karras was found. It was this time that William very much really screwed up. Though leaving more than just a victim's body, he left a whole lot more evidence.
There was a lot of evidence here. I was able to determine that the perpetrator had actually backed up into the place where he stopped. I was able to tell the investigators exactly what tires that we were looking for.
And what was most bizarre about this was the vehicle was driving on 4 different tires?
How many people drive around with 4 different types of tires on their vehicle? That's very unique and unusual to begin with.
Now, authorities had the eyewitness description of the killer. They had the description of the van down to the tire prints. They had the exact area the killer was frequenting. Law enforcement went on to overdrive.
The plan was that if anybody stopped a vehicle and the individual driving it matched the description, they were to call me.
And it would not take long for a patrol car to pull over a silver van matching the description for an unauthorized U-turn in the area, what was known as the red light district of University Avenue. Now it was time to put all the pieces of the puzzle together.
He looked inside the van and saw a green blanket, which matched a lot of the fibers. He saw a rope in the van as well.
Look down and tell me what the driver's side front tire brand was. And when I asked them to go to the passenger side and give me the brand of that tire, that's when I said, okay, I'm en route.
And that was it. On January 9th, 1992, the now 41-year-old William Lester Suff was arrested. The Riverside Prostitute Killer reign of terror had come to an end.
I looked at him and I was rather shocked that he was so plain looking. Very calm, spoke very softly. Didn't look like somebody that could commit the atrocious acts.
At that point in time, he was arrested and brought to the station.
Despite William's claims of innocence, further investigation of his van and his home produced damning evidence to the contrary.
We found what we characterized as trophies or souvenirs, personal items belonging to the victims. Matter of fact, some of the victims had jewelry that he had taken off the victims' bodies and given to his girlfriend.
3 years later, on August 17th, 1995, William Lester Suff would be brought to court where he would plead his innocence.
Prosecutor Zellerbach and the news media have all painted a grotesque picture of me as a cold-blooded, heartless monster. They couldn't have been more wrong about me. I am a caring, loving, and helpful person. Ask anyone who was close to me.
Regardless of all of his pleas of innocence, on August 25th, 1995, after deliberating for only 10 minutes, the jury returned a verdict of guilty on 12 murder counts, and he ordered Suff condemned to death.
The jury returned a death verdict, and ultimately he was sentenced to death 12 times.
Surprising enough, William Lester Suff is still alive today and awaiting his execution on death row at San Quentin State Prison. If you would like to write to him, you can by sending him a letter at William Lester Suff, CDC number J-83402, San Quentin State Prison, San Quentin, California, 94974. Well, that's it for us tonight. I hope you enjoyed this episode of 5 Minutes of Murder. And kids, don't forget to lock your doors and windows, as you never know when your 5 minutes are going to be up. Peace.